gonna have any fights this week? Oh man, we gotta have some fights.
What?
Oh, music. Sorry, my bad.
What is up, Raider Nation? We were just trying to get everything ready, get everything set up for this big show because it's the off season, and this is what we do in a cage match. We try to put together the big shows and not just keep pumping out the whiny shows that a lot of folks out there do, with just complaining about what's going on and whatever. Anyways, how you doing, Asylum? How you doing?
Same old cry show,
Yes. Yes, we know none of us get our own way, but it is what it is, and here we are right now. And I see that the chat's going on. The chat was going on before we even came on. People were all like, "Let's hurry up, let's go!" Like, I know. We just got to get everything put together because, like I said, it's a big show. So, Asylum, how you doing, Mister Jim Otto himself? Never missed an episode at all. Live on every single time we went on. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I am doing good, and for our first big show in the off season, I'm ready, and I can't wait, for this history lesson, another history lesson for our people out there in the YouTube universe. All right, before we get into all that, Asylum, let's do our favorite segment, which is the shameless plug. Oh yeah, shameless plug. Here we go.
Shameless plug. You got it right.
Yes. Here we go.
Got it. Okay, everyone, go to the YouTube channel, The Cage Match Show. Like, share, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and hit that bell every time. That way, you get notified every time a video, meme, short, whatever gets put out by The Cage Match. You'll be able to catch it and know it's out there. And if Roger Goodell wants to be a dick, like he likes to do with this show sometimes, you can catch us on Facebook on Oakland Raiders Savages page or my page, Asylum. And then when the show's all over, why don't you go ahead and visit WGG and browse their variety of different energy drinks. And when you check it out, put Cage Match one word in the discount code to get 10% off your entire order.
And like we always say, when you think of wins, think of dubs. When you think of dubs, think of Dubby. Get that energy like Max Crosby. He'll be on this team, okay? All these people, you don't want to get traded. No. Get the energy like Max Crosby. Go in there, 10% off your whole order. Put in the discount code CAGEMATCH, CAGEMATCH. Help us out. Help the show out. If you like the content we're doing, help us out. Get yourself some Dubby. And like I said, help us out. And then also shouts out to the Copa Fabian. Fabian, he has his website, the www.r and the number 4 lifer.com. RaiderNationForLifer.com is how I remember it. Go there, check out his merch. And I'm sorry, I'm stuck on this gray hat. I'm sorry. So
I got my gray hat on this side.
I gotta go. I swear, I'm gonna get some more stuff because I just don't want to go because it's addicting. You know, I get all this Raider gear and then it's like, oh, my bad, I gotta pay rent. But anyways, go there, check that out. Come up with Fabian, RaiderNationForLifer.com, and also shouts out to Raiderman, RaiderMan19.com. He also has his own merch, the Raider Oath merch, and that's the oath that you hear at the end of our intro, our main intro that you hear before every single show. And speaking of that, we want to get him to the torch next year at the start of the season and get him to do that Raider Oath in front of the 65,000 people in Allegiant Stadium, bringing that Oakland Raider mystique to the Raider Way in Las Vegas as the Mega Powers combine. Oh, yeah. Get that together. Oh, yeah. Light that fire. Oh, yeah. So, want to get him over there, get him going, and that is that. The favorite segment right there. I dropped my water cap on the floor. Because I'm trying to stay.
I was going to say, I hope you didn't hit it on your computer and everything and end up all of a sudden cutting in and out. Your internet stops working, all that other shit.
Don't jinx me, because it's happened before. All right, here we go. Before we get into the show, we do have a news. We do have some news updates. So let's get into that. Do you have it?
I got the intro. I got it. Ready?
Yes.
This is CMN, a cage match news update.
Thank you, James Earl Jones, and RIP.
RIP. All right, first one on the ticket. Of course, we already heard before. After a couple of days after Antonio Pierce was fired, General Manager Tom Telesco, after just one season, was fired. Telesco, as you see here, you know, he had the one season and we thought he was going to stay, and he seemed like he was going to be safe because they weren't a package deal. They were hired separately, just introduced together. And a little message from the Raider organization for Telesco. The Las Vegas Raiders have relieved Tom Telesco of his duties as general manager. We appreciate his efforts in helping build a foundation for the future. We wish Tom and his family all the best. And when we saw that happening, well, actually, let's show what he did. This is what he did in this one and only Raider draft. You know, Brock Bowers, of course, started from day one, broke records, and Jackson Powers Johnson and Delmar Glaze, DJ Glaze, came onto the scene early in the season and never let go of their positions on that offensive line. And then you have like I can never say his name, Cameron Richardson, the cornerback. He came in for the injured Jacorian Bennett, so he had a lot of playing time. So a lot of these players, except for MJ Devonshire, all these players have contributed somehow, some way this season. So Telesco, for his one draft, did very well. We were anticipating to see how he'll go with his next draft, being a full year with the team, but that won't happen. And when we saw that he got let go, we kind of thought that something big, they're preparing for something big, and here we go. What do you think?
What? I thought you were playing that. Well, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, we turn around and, you know, we obviously thought he was going to be safe, especially when earlier in the season they said they were going to be evaluated separately, you know, kind of a thing. And with the draft he had, I mean, his first 3 hits, you know, he hit good. You figured with his draft, his job was safe. With all that, and, you know, with him going, and everything you're hearing and the way things gone, it wasn't his draft. It wasn't anything he's done. It just sounds like the only reason they did it is because they want to bring in a GM and head coach together to, you know, that can work together and not be necessarily fighting each other per se.
All of them tabloids say so. They're always fighting. All right, and the next one right here. Patriots hire Mike Vrabel as next head coach. The former Titan head coach, who was also last year the Browns advisory to something or other. He is now hired by the Patriots, and then also another Mike. Huh?
I believe it was player personnel advisor.
Player personnel and coaching advisor, and then the Cowboys with Mike McCarthy, his contract was up. They couldn't come with a deal. So that Coach Mike, is on his way. And as you see here, first, you seen the Patriots have hired their guy, but now we have a new vacancy right there, the Cowboys. So 6 teams still remain with no head coach. And the Cowboys, I mean, they waited too long to figure it out. Now they can't even interview any of the coaches currently with their team still playing in the playoffs, because now they got to wait till Super Bowl weekend or until after they're out, after their seasons are done.
I think it's the week in between the divisional game and the Super Bowl, or the divisional championship, whichever one. That week within the Super Bowl, I think they have to wait till then to be able to interview anybody who's still playing.
Yeah, and we brought that up to show that one coach that everybody wanted is now off to the Patriots, like we all thought. And Mike McCarthy, Mike McCarthy, he's out there now, but not saying that we're going to go after him, but just saying when one coach goes,
the next domino to fall is going to be the Cowboys, because they're going to hire Deion Sanders now.
Yes, Deion Sanders, everybody else wanted. Raiders said, "No, we're good." So he's like, "Hey." And speaking of, we got the coaching tracker here. Let's look at the coaching that we have going on. It's right here. All right. 2025 coaching candidate trackers. We have Ben Johnson, who connected and scheduled. Ben Johnson on the 10th with his defensive coordinator with the Lions, Aaron Glenn, with Steve Spagnuolo. They all three had their interview on the 10th. Pete Carroll had his interview. That was on the 13th. And then they're waiting for Robert Saleh, which should be tomorrow, their interview with him. Other requested candidates: Todd Monken with the Ravens offensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, who just ended his season, defensive coordinator for the Broncos, Brian Flores, who they just ended their season horribly with the Vikings. So they all have been requested. And then, of course, the general manager candidates: John Spytek, Buccaneers assistant GM, who helped bring Tom Brady over to the Buccaneers after the Patriots. Spytek with Spytek with Tom Brady. Spytek. Anyways, John Eric Sullivan, the Packers VP of Player Personnel, he's also a candidate that they want to interview. And then Sheldon White, Steelers Director of Pro Scouting, he has also been requested for an interview. That is your Raider coaching candidate tracker right there. Anything on that, Solemn?
Well, no, I mean, the whole Spytek and Ben Johnson are tied together right now. Right now, all those GM interviews are probably going to happen quick, just because all those teams are now out of the playoffs. So I think they just had to wait 3 days, from each game, and now they can start the interview process with these guys. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, I guess the biggest thing here is that the John Spytek and Ben Johnson connection with Tom Brady, with the way things going, that looks like the possibility of your head coach, GM of the future.
Yeah,
possibly. We're not saying it's going to happen. That's what it's sounding like it could happen.
And Spytek has been interviewed by the Raiders before in 2022, before they hired McDaniels and Ziegler. And so his interview this year would be his second with the organization. Second in 4 years, 5 years, in 3 years, 4 years, 3 years. So 3 years. So we'll see. Yeah, that they're saying that is the perfect combination right there. That, dream team, and with Brady calling the game for the Lions. Everyone's like, it's an unfair advantage. You get to go and talk to Ben Johnson legally, and probably
Now I've heard something about there's a conflict of interest with that, and there's a possibility he might not be able to call that game.
NFL. Oh, NFL, you know how they are.
All right, son. See, look, what's going to happen? He's going to call that game, and then we're going to get hit with tampering like Atlanta did last year with Kirk Cousins, and we'll end up losing a damn draft pick out of it.
Yeah, well, that's how the NFL is. And, well, I mean, kind of Tom Brady put himself in that, but either be with the Raiders or be a common, I don't know. I'm just kind of whatever. All right, Asylum.
He likes to be half and half. He likes his balls just slightly inflated.
Slightly. Deflategate. All right. Here we go. What everyone's been waiting for. We have him backstage. Let's go play the intro. Salim, do you have the intro ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Just let me know when to hit it.
All right. Let's go and into the episode that we have been all been waiting for. Here we go. Here is the intro. There we go.
Bill Callahan as he carries the torch.
He carries the torch for us all now.
Guy who I'm tapping, and the Raiders are tapping to lead us back.
I say it with pride. I want you to meet, ladies and gentlemen, Norvell Turner.
Art Shell.
Tom Cable.
We can all feel good about this.
Yeah, well, great. No, you feel good about it. That's all. Just got to win. Passion.
In Oakland, good feelings didn't last long, nor did coaches.
I've always said it's not important to be consistent. It's important to be right.
This morning, I called Lane and told him that he no longer is the head coach of the Oakland Raiders, and I'm dismissing him with cause.
All right. Let me introduce him right here. This is Jon Kingdon. This is a picture with him and Al Davis. Now, Jon Kingdon, he was hired as an intern with the Raiders in 1978, and he did in various capacities. He was Tom Flores' administrative assistant in 1979, and then became full-time in Raiders personnel department. 1993, director of college scouting. 33 years total with the organization. Here we are right here. Oh, and also we're pushing this book too. Make sure you go there to Amazon, and I'm just trying to switch this over here. Okay, go to Al Davis, Behind the Raiders Shield, Untold Stories from Longtime Davis Confidant. Go there, check that out. It's available on Amazon. We have it here also. We got our own books right here too. So the man himself right here, Jon Kingdon. Let me get the audience ready. All right. Jon Kingdon, welcome to the show. It's been a while, but we're glad you're back. How are you doing?
You know, just real quick, I was impressed how you colorized the picture of me and Al. That was a black and white photo. They did it very nicely. That was great. No,
yes,
we catching me up to date with everything. I get the clip. I still get the clips of all the games, the newspaper clips. So I've been trying to stay on top of things as well. So, but thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk with you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And you know, we try to do some new technology that, you know, other people on YouTube are like, how do they do all that? Well, you know, we got this high-tech studio. No, we don't. We just do what we do. Anyways, welcome to the show. And of course, this show is about how the front office was when Al Davis was in charge, because that's, you know, you worked with Al Davis for, like we said, 33 years. And even in the book, it says that Al Davis would call you with just, you know, to get your opinion from draft picks, which you was a head of scouting, even to possible head coaches and who would you hire. So we decided, let's do the same thing like Al Davis and call Mr. Jon Kingdon and ask him who he would hire and how the process went in the organization. And we saw the intro of the video of towards the end of Al Davis's life, how many coaches he's had since, or that the head coaches he's had in those last 10 years. I guess you could say since Jon Gruden's first term. So yeah, that's why we're here. So I guess first of all, how is it in the Raiders organization when they're looking for a head coach? Like right after the last season is over and Al Davis made his decision to move on from the previous head coach, how does that process go from beginning till when Al Davis finally introduces that next head coach? How was that in the organization?
Well, it's a little unique, you know, with Al in the sense of, I mean, he was going to make the ultimate decision. You know, starting with Gruden, you know, it came down to John Gruden and Bill Belichick. Now, I did, I flashed back, someone said, why wouldn't he take Belichick? And I think in the book I talked about, go back to 70, when I first got there in 78, and I went and he asked me to pick up, if I could pick up George Allen at the airport. He says, do you know who he is? Of course I know who he is. He wanted me to take him to the hospital to see Darryl Stingley. I said, so it was great. So anyway, so I took him. He couldn't have been nicer. And he took me in, and we were sitting there, and he says, let me buy you some ice cream. And he was selling himself to me. Now, again, I'm just starting at the bottom, but he was telling me, how I would attack Denver, how he would attack this team and that team and such. And then he got Al on the phone, and he started selling himself again. And so later I was driving Al somewhere, and we hadn't had a coach. He says, guess who wants to be my head coach? So I go, George Allen? He goes, how'd you know that? I told him about that. But at that point, in fact, it was obviously going to be Tom, but it was, so Tom was pretty much, you're going to be the coach. That was pretty well set. And then, Tom had that run, and when he went with Shanahan, and he said he wanted someone to bring in the, I'm sorry, it was Tom. He actually liked Ray Perkins too, but it was going to be Tom. But he wanted someone to bring in the West Coast offense, which was Shanahan. Now, the problem, in retrospect, is, he only allowed him to have 3 coaches to bring in. But then Alex Gibbs on the O-line and Pete Hernandez as the special teams coach and the receivers coach. But, and Mike wanted to do things totally different, and he had a coaching staff that didn't support him. And, so obviously that wasn't going to work. And Art came in, and, the players were, rallied around Art, and we were still a very good team, and that went on. And then, and after Art goes, Mike White was not a great hire either, but he wanted to keep it in-house. And then Joe Gibbs, I was a big fan of Joe's, but I think he was the right man at the wrong time.
Jack.
I gotta.
No, it was Joe Bugle.
I say Joe Gibbs. Joe Bugle, of course, the right man at the wrong time, and that was such a dysfunctional thing. And John came in, and we put 2 chapters in there about what a great job he did in turning it around. And I mean, really, things were going great. And again, I just to get rid of John, it was just the wrong thing to do. But I think our speculation was he did not care for John, becoming the face of the organization. And this is, just my speculation. Who are the 3 people he had problems with Kenny Stabler, Gruden, and Marcus, 3 guys that became the face of the team. Bill, that 1 year with Bill was just great. And then, it kind of fell apart. And, Norv was a solid coach, but didn't work. But now the Art Shell one, I didn't put this in the book, but, he called me up and, and said, what do you think about hiring Art Shell? Well, I was not a big fan of that one. And I came out pretty strong about my opposition to it. Mike Lombardi was there, and, we didn't discuss it, but I know Mike was very much against it too. And I brought up a specific case that bothered me about Art. I don't think he was really committed and had the energy to do it. And I wouldn't write this in the book, but I'll tell it now, was, Lincoln Kennedy was coming out in the draft, and we had like the 13th or 14th pick, whatever it was. And we thought there was a real chance that Lincoln would be there when we picked. So I said to Art, look, I just need one trip for you to go up to Washington, see that workout for Lincoln Kennedy. And he gave me the date. I gave him the date. He says, well, I can't go there then. I said, well, what's going on? Well, I'm going to Reno. I said, well, who's in Reno? He says, nobody. He says, I'm just taking the time off. I said, this is important. I think you need to go up there. He says, no, now get out of my office. I said, well, anyway, I told Al that story and a couple other things that really bothered me. And then Al said something. He says, well, you bring up a lot of good points, but I may have to hire him anyway. And it was just, that was just the worst year. And the only, we could have been 0-16. And the irony of that year is the 2 teams we beat, which were Arizona and Pittsburgh, were the 2 teams in the Super Bowl, which is great. But, Ed Kirk Morrison did a great job. The defense really did a great job with, Wink Martindale and Rob Ryan. And the defense, kept us in some games. But Here's another one that's just, it was really a bad year. And again, I wouldn't have put this in the book, but I was just telling them. So I was sitting there before the last game of the season, and I used to go in, when the players were done, I'd eat in at the pregame meal, and Art sat down next to me and says, "Oh, JK." Players came up to me and says, "Coach, we're finally doing things right. We got it turned around. We got to have you back." And I'm looking at him. I think, what the heck is he thinking? But I looked at him square in the eye. I said, "Coach, I'm with you." Anyway, he got fired the next day. And then the whole Sarkisian thing. Hello?
Yeah, I remember that.
Did I lose you here? Hold on.
No. You're good.
My screen was off. Good. The whole Sarkisian thing, I wanted to go into because that was in the book, and that finally through. And then Mike, what the hell stuff keeps popping? And then Lane, the whole Kiffin thing, that's been told to death. And then Cable, that wasn't great. And in fact, the guy I was pushing was Terry Robisky. I think would have been an excellent coach. And but that story will come out soon enough. And Cable, and then Hugh Jackson, and I liked you, and he did some good things, but he did some really bad things. Just to remind you, I don't know if you remember, we're playing Cleveland, and we're up by 14 points with like 4 minutes to go in the game. And we got 4th and 1 on like the 10-yard line going in. Well, I'm not the coach, but you kick the field goal. Now it's a 3-score game. He goes for it, and we don't get it. Cleveland takes the ball, boom, takes it right down the field. Now, scored touchdown. They recover the onside kick. We're up by 7. And I'm thinking, if we lose this game, I mean, this would go down in history as one of the, that's a fireable offense almost. And they went 4 and out, and that was that. And then, and then he gets fired. And Dennis Allen, I think, maybe he's, I guess, a good coordinator, but as a head coach, it doesn't quite do it. But, he was decent enough. And, and after that, Sperano. And then, here's something that always bothered me as long as I got you, that Jack Del Rio, who had a very good year, getting into the playoffs. And then, the next year, he has a bad year. And the last game, and I'm watching it on TV, they're playing the Chargers, and they lose. And then Del Rio comes out, and he announces on the road here, by the way, I just got fired. Now, I found that mind-numbing. You'd fire the guy on the road on the last game. I mean, who wants to fly back on the team with a coach who just got fired? I mean, it just made no sense. But, either, your owner does it or Reggie should have done it. But, nobody ever explained. But that one, it made no sense to me whatsoever.
That happened to Dennis Allen, too, at the end of the Miami game in London. He had got fired in London.
Yeah, and you're flying back. I mean, it's just, again, I'm on the outside, and who knows what went on there. But I think Del Rio probably got a contract extension off the, making the playoffs. Prior year.
Yeah, he did.
I'm sure he, for that reason, he probably felt, okay, I got another couple of years going. And, and then, Gruden, I'm a big fan of. But the personnel didn't work, and then obviously the emails were problem. And Bisaccia, again, Bisaccia comes in. I thought did an excellent job, and again, this is from the outside. I don't think Mark saw this as a particularly sexy hire. The players wanted him, and and so I think it was Kenny Herrock recommended McDaniels. And Ken Herrock's son also gets hired, and Lombardi's son gets hired, and it doesn't work. And Antonio comes in, and and he comes out 5-4, and I think it's a little deceptive the record, but the players want him. Well, they wanted Bisaccia, so you listen to the players, and it's one of those things. It's like you listen to the fans enough, you're going to be sitting in the stands with them. So the players, they like the guy, but, obviously, I think there were a number of games they could have won this year, with a number of decisions or whatever that you can go through it. And, I don't think the team is that far away from, being successful. And I'd say there were 4 or 5 games that were really very easily winnable. And obviously the signature win we talked about was Baltimore, but the other games, again, it happened. There weren't a lot of blowouts per se. There were some games that were close, and then the fourth quarter they lost it. So I think whoever comes in, you get the right person with the right personnel director or a college a general manager, and I don't think it's that far off to consider that things could, if a lot of things come together, that they could very easily be a playoff team.
Yeah. I was going to ask, with Al Davis, having all these different coaching changes, or I guess with Al Davis being up top and him being involved in all the football operations and everything, how attractive was the Raider coaching job once it became available, the head coaching job? How attractive was it? And how did Al Davis sell it, even though everyone knew, or it was always speculated that Al Davis pushed all the buttons and pulled all the strings? You were just there with the title head coach. How did he sell the team to a up and coming head coach? And was it attractive? Because I remember you were naming off names that we didn't get. I remember Sean Payton was also he was looking at the Raider job, and he ended up calling Bill Parcells, and he says, no. Right now, for that team, that organization, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't start your head coaching career with that organization. He ended up going to the Saints and eventually went to the Super Bowl with Drew Brees. But how attractive was the job in general to work under Al Davis and be that head coach to try to bring the organization back to its
Jack.
back to its winning ways again?
Well, it was. I think like you said, you brought about Peyton. I think the same thing happened with Sarkisian, because we had and I wrote about that in the book, how the whole process, and it really looked like it was going to be a done deal. But the point I always remembered, when we hired Jon, he said that when he got there, it was tough to get coaches to come. And some players were resistant, and once he turned that thing around, I give him a lot of credit. But I give Al Davis, deserves a great deal of credit, because he helped putting that team together as well. And I think it was a very balanced thing where Jon was making the decisions on the field, as opposed to under Art Shell, where Al had a lot of input and such. And then people were coming, and when when Al, talk about trading Jon, I said, we've got everything right here. Everything's going well. He might leave and such, and he just wasn't. He had his mind set up. But I kind of regret not really coming on a lot stronger, and just saying, why, if it's not broke, why fix it, kind of thing. And it really, but that first carryover year with Bill was great. I mean, it really was really put together, and with Gannon and the whole thing came together. And then, I think what happens with these coaches, I think the players kind of realize at that point after Bill that maybe Al was calling the shots a lot more than the head coach, and I think they lose somehow the respect of the coaches kind of diminishes. And that happened with all of them, with Kiffin and with Cable, and you had a little bit more input at that point. Al was kind of getting on in age, and so I think you had a little more independence, and we had some success. And it was that, God, who was the quarterback, fell down and broke his collarbone? We were doing so well, and
Campbell.
I thought I think we were really on the way to the playoffs.
That was actually on that Browns game you was talking about, when Hugh Jackson year. That was the first home game after Al Davis passed. So they just had won that emotional game with the Texans, and then because I remember that game, I was at that game, that Browns game, and he was trying to slide for a first down. Campbell was trying to slide for a first down, and he kind of went down awkwardly, and I think he kind of went a shoulder first, his throwing shoulder first into the ground, and broke his collarbone. And that's when we ended up with the greatest trade in NFL history.
Well, I'm sorry, which trade are we talking about?
The Carson Palmer that that Hugh Jackson said was the greatest trade in NFL history.
Which what are we talking about? It was
Carson Palmer.
Oh, yeah, no, that was the Cardinals. No, actually, he went on and obviously played very well with the Cardinals, and Carson was good. But again, it was we weren't a. He was a good player. Let me leave it at that. But where was I going? I was going to talk, coaches and such. But
you was talking about Jason Campbell when he broke his collarbone.
I'm saying that you was doing pretty well with it. And the guy should have slid, instead of diving forward like that. So that was really an unfortunate, thing that happened. And anyway, Jamarcus. Well, yeah, here's one. I don't think we talked about. In fact, this was the Randy Moss trade. Now we traded for Randy, and I thought, this is a great player, and we did, and he started out pretty well, but I thought in the end he was a front runner. When things weren't going well, he pretty much quit on the team. Told, hey, don't have me run any patterns on the infield. I'm not doing that. So I had a report. So we trade him to New England, and there was a reporter called me up just a few months ago and wanted to do a story about how Randy Moss got traded to New England. I mean, it was only a fourth. And so somebody gave my name, and, I said, well, look, I was not involved in that. In fact, it happened during our draft meetings. So we were sitting in our draft meetings, and somebody came into Al and said that, well, we're going to get a 6th round pick for Randy Moss. And Al goes, what the hell are you talking? 6th round? Who the hell? He says, and I believe, so someone asked me who was doing the trade, and there was a guy named Mark Jackson who came in with Kiffin. It was just like Kiffin's assistant, and it made no sense because he had never done this stuff. And so Al gets Bill Belichick on the phone, and we're in the room. He's on a speakerphone, and he says, Bill, what are you taking advantage of this kid for? Which was Mark. He says, you only give him a 6. He said, well, that's all he asked for. He says, what do you want? Give me a 4th. Fine, he gave him a 4th, but again, that one just you make a trade like that, you put in conditions. If he catches X number of passes, if they make the playoff, he catches 80 passes, 90, and the picks move up, and we ended up with a 4th, and it was some DB from Cincinnati that had a good 40, but that was what was going on there, and Al was he was getting on. It was tough for him to. It was just too hard for him, and I think he really would have done a much better job. But in fact, normally he would have gotten out of the room and sit in the room privately with Belichick. He couldn't get out of the chair at that point, so he was on the speakerphone with the scouts in the room. But that was the story. But anyway, the guy called up Mark Jackson, who's now he's the athletic director, I believe, at Villanova, and he said, "Well, I didn't do that. I just made a call or something." And so I told the guy, call Belichick, and so I guess he did, and Bill didn't talk, so he didn't really have a source to go and tell the story, and that was the best thing. And he called Bruce Kebrick, to confirm, and Bruce, was in the room with me as well, and he told him the same story. So that was an unfortunate. That trade just was crazy. So there you go. And going back, he wanted obviously we go to Jamarcus and. And Lane Kiffin was our coach, and Lane, and he's a good coach. He's done a great job at Ole Miss, but and he knew personnel, and he absolutely did not want Jamarcus. And when we made it clear to Al that here's Jamarcus, you needed someone in college to get him up out of bed, to get him to class, to get to practice, and all that stuff. Now you're going to give him, $30-40 million, and where's the incentive for him? Which in the end, he had none. So, but he took the guy. We were pushing Calvin Johnson, who was, who would have been great. who beat us in the Detroit game. You know, we're having whatever. Rolando McClain's trying to cover him down the field, which made no sense.
Another number one draft pick.
Well, you know, Hayward Bay, again, we had him as a first round. Somebody's asking about the picks. I'll go, Hayward Bay, we had as a first round pick, but we had him as like the 25th pick in the draft, not the 6th pick in the draft. And we suggested you can trade down, you can trade down, you can trade down. And at that point, Al would get focused on the guy. Oh, I can't risk losing this. And there was Darius. And, you know, and unfortunate, you know, what really killed him, and he's a wonderful guy, and he had ability, but it wasn't a great passing offense, but he could catch the ball. But, you know, he's watching ESPN with Chris Berman, you know, Darius Hayward Bay has got more names than catches. Which, you know, and then, what's his name? The Niners had I forget
Crabtree.
Crabtree was having a great season. So, you know, I think it just the pressure got to him more and more. And if you remember, we're playing the Chiefs, and Darius, he's alone, you know, down the field, and we catch, we're in place to win the game, and the ball goes to hits him in the chest, pops up, it gets intercepted. Now, to his credit, the next year he really worked hard in the offseason and did a lot better. In the third season, you can look up his stats. He had a great season. He was what we were hoping he would be, and then they cut him or whatever. But that was Al. And again, the problem was he wouldn't trade down. Mike Mitchell was a real mistake in the sense, you know, they didn't listen to the scouts. We had a great scout named Angelo Coya. You should look up Angelo. He played in the league. He was a first round pick of the Chicago Bears. Was a receiver, and he was this great receiver, very very fast. And he went to high school in Philadelphia, and he was telling me they played in the city championship. And one of his teammates, and to go back, was named Herb Adderley, was in the Hall of Fame with Green Bay, and they played in front of 60,000 people for this high school championship. But his connection was Al got him to go to the Citadel, and then when Al left the Citadel, went to USC, Angie went with him, so there was great loyalty, and he was a wonderful scout and a great guy. So he gives Mike Mitchell a 5th round pick, and Mike, you know, had a good 40, and he was a physical guy, but we could see the film. He wasn't a good open field tackler, and he wasn't a cover guy, and it was crazy. So some guy came in with a highlight tape of the guy, and the coaches, you know, this was crazy. And 4th round, we had him in the 5th. You know, I didn't say, you know, and whatever you can. He was what he was. He had one good game against Ohio State where he made a lot of hits, but that was really it. But so we're in the room, and these coaches, and some guy says, "Oh yeah, I think he looks like Ronnie Lott," and some say, "Well, I see some Woodson in him," and Willie Brown goes, "Oh, there's some Jack Tatum in there." And I'm just like, my jaw's dropping. So the meeting's over, and I'm sitting there, and everyone leaves, and Al's sitting there, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God. I said, what's the matter? He says, Jack Tatum, Ronnie Lott, and Charles Woodson. What the hell? Well, they're just talking. But somehow, I mean, we took him in the 3rd. We took him in, so we're in I guess it was the 3rd, yeah. So we traded down, and then Pittsburgh calls us and offers us their pick, their 3rd and their 4th. And, you know, I'm saying, well, let's do it. This is, you know, let's go. We'll get the extra picks. No one's going to take this guy. And Tom Cable, who was an awful personnel guy, says, oh, we can't risk losing him. We can't risk losing him. And we take him. And of course, you know, I remember he said to Amy, he calls Amy, says, we're going to get killed on ESPN for this pick, which we were. But tell him to watch the Ohio State game, which is good. So Mike, he comes in, and what happens? He pulls his hamstring, you know, and he misses most of the season. Was it the 2nd? Maybe it was the 2nd. We could have traded down for a 2nd and a 3rd, but it just was crazy that we didn't get those extra picks. And like I said, he pulls the hamstring, and I think I wasn't there long after that. And he's gone. He kicked around the league a little bit. I think maybe he's working for a team. Something, I'm not sure what he's doing. I saw something.
I remember, Mike Mitchell.
That was some of the issues. I'll give you another one. I think, you know, Nnamdi Asomugha I'll give you the background. Was, Namdi was a safety. I watched junior film, and I gave him like a 4th or 5th round pick. He wasn't a tough guy, but he just nothing special. But I hadn't gone to Cal, so I was at the University of Washington, and I had time to kill, and I was watching him. I don't know how well he played at Pittsburgh, but I know he was there, so maybe he was a teams guy. But anyway, so I'm at Washington, and they had a very good receiver. And so I watched some Cal film, and I said, "Oh my gosh, they moved Namdi to cornerback." I wasn't aware, so I started watching him, and he shut this guy down. I said, "Oh my God, this is pretty good." So I'm looking forward to it. And the next week, I was watching this film, and I said, "It was really good." And Bruce Kebrick, was a West Coast guy. I said, "You got to watch film on Namdi as a cornerback." And I think we had him in the 2nd round, and and he ran a very good 40. So Al gets excited too. And we had actually the 31st and 32nd pick. And there was a guy from Colorado, a defensive end that he wanted to take. And David McLuhan was a scout there. And we watched a lot of film, and we didn't like him. But his size and speed and kind of thing. And I think he thought he was going to be Scott Davis, who was a very good player. But so we said, so what happened, Washington calls us up. They want the 31st pick, and they're going to give us their first pick the next year. So he said, well, let's do it. Let's do it. You can take Namdi. Well, I can't. Namdi's not going to be taken that high. So I can't risk losing. So we make the picks. The Washington Redskins turned out they wanted to take a receiver named Taylor Jacobs, who was there when they picked. So it turns out the next year the Redskins have the 6th pick in the draft, which would have been our pick because they would have still had the same player. So that one always. And anyway, the defensive, who was that guy? It was the same year we took Namdi. And he wasn't very good, and he tried to make him a linebacker. And anyway, so that pick turned out to be a little bit cursed because the Redskins took I think it was Sean Taylor was his name, turned out to be a really good cornerback, safety rather. And the next year there was a home invasion, and somebody shot him in the leg, and he bled to death. So that was unfortunate.
That was sad.
But that was sad. But those are just kind of some of the things that that was some of the reasons things weren't working. Sean Taylor, gosh, that was just R.I.P. Thank you. That was really sad. He could have very easily come to us, but there was another guy. God, I'm just there was a funny story. I go to Adam True. There's another guy that
Adam True.
Another story. We had a linebacker at I think it was University of Arizona State. And Bruce really liked, and we really wanted to take this guy in the 3rd round. And we had 2 thirds. We had an early 3rd and a late 3rd, and we wanted to take this linebacker. Well, Al wanted Adam True, and Kent McLuhan was our scout there, and David McLuhan also. And we had him as a 7th round pick. But his main thing, he was a great snapper. But it's skinny. We just whatever. But Al got all fired up about this guy. So we want to take this linebacker, and he ended up going to the Redskins. If someone wants to look that one up, the year we took True. And Al says, no, I'm going to take Adam True in this pick. You can have your guy in the next pick. And Bruce goes, he's not going to be there with the next pick. And of course, we take True, and the guy gets taken, and the room just deflates. And Al realizes he blew it. And and somehow he comes out with a guy named Tim Cohn. But he's not. And we take him, and he's terrible. And but I think we took Grady Jackson later in the draft, who turned out to be a really good pick. But those are some of the picks that just it was another one. We're in the 2nd round, and I think it was he wanted this lineman from Virginia State, and I think we had Barrett Robbins. I think who it was. I could be wrong, but we all wanted Barrett Robbins, and so we went with Barrett Robbins. So now we're in the now we're in the 3rd round, and nobody. No, it wasn't with the pick. Maybe the year after, but it wasn't.
Napoleon Harris was drafted a Super Bowl year in 2002 after they traded Beaker to the Vikings. I think Yeah, and the player talking about was Tyler Brayton. He was after Namdi in the 2003 draft.
Guy that was just, I mean, a good guy and all, but he wasn't explosive, and they tried to make him a 3-4 linebacker. And you can see he's looking out there and says, "What the hell am I doing out here?" It was crazy. But anyway, so we took, I guess it was Barrett Robbins. And then someone says to Al, that guy you wanted in the second round, he's still there in the third. He says, "You don't understand. You don't take a guy like that in the third round. You take him in the second round." And we all kind of looked at each other. So we didn't want him in the third. But anyway, that was every so often he came up with something like that. They just kind of made us scratch our head. But and I'm sorry to be, he did some great thing. I mean, Sebastian, great picker. Shane Leckler in the fifth. I mean, we did a lot of good things, and historically did made a lot of great picks there. And so it was like Sebastian. I remember. We had Jeff Jager, who was a very good kicker, and he got hurt, and Cole Ford came in and played, kicked pretty well, and Al let Jager go because Cole Ford was cheaper. But once Cole Ford got the position, he really choked. It was terrible. And so what happens? This is whatever. So here it is. He has a bad year. Now his contract's up, and I'm going up to training camp, and Bruce Allen says, "Well, I've got 2 contracts for Cole Ford. One is like a $250,000 signing bonus for 3 years or whatever the numbers, or a 1-year contract with no bonus." I say to him, "And there's a question which one he's going to sign?" Said, "Hey, that's not your choice. You give him the choice." So I went up there and I said, "Cole, you got these 2 contracts. Which one do you want to sign?" "Well, I haven't decided yet." I said, "All right, well, look, you have to sign one or the other. You can hang around here a little bit, but basically, once camp starts, you can't be here without a contract. So call your agent and figure out what you want to do." He signs the 1-year contract, which is great. And I think we probably cut him in the middle of the season. And and then we went through another couple of kickers the next 2 years. We traded for a guy from Tampa who was a good kicker and came to us. He was terrible. And we signed a kicker out of Texas who we thought would be really good, and they cut him in camp, and he had a long career with the Niners and a bunch of other guys. And so then it's Sebastian. So I was talking to Kent McLuhan. I said, "Kent," he's like, we haven't gone to the meetings yet. I said, "Kent, if you could sign a guy that if he was on our roster a year ago, we would have won 4 more games, would you draft him?" And he said, "Is this a trick question?" I said, "Yeah, a little bit." He says, "Well, just on the surface of your question, yeah, I would." I said, "Well, there's a kicker at Florida State. This guy is explosive, and if he was on our team last year, we would have won 4 more games." Zach Miller, great steer, sure. And whatchamacallit? And he was anyway. He came in, and he started a little slowly, but he and he became had a very, very long and illustrious career. Well, going to tight ends. Okay, here was the other one. Who was the? I haven't been in the league in 11 or 12. Who was the great tight end with Baltimore? They took in the first round, and we
currently
took,
or the older.
The one that came to the Raiders?
No. This guy was there for 10, 12. It was like a great tight end. It was the same year we took Gibson, Darrell Gibson. Someone look that up.
That hurt.
Did that hurt? Okay. Gosh. Anyway,
Gibson was, I think, 2001.
The Ravens tight end. He was great, Pro Bowler, the whole thing. So we want this guy like nobody's business, and Al wants Gibson, and we from Florida State. And his thinking was he wants him to be able to cover Tony Gonzalez, but we didn't have him as that high, and this tight end was going to be great. And we don't take. Now, here's the other problem that you talk about not trading down. The Chargers called us up, and they had like the second pick in the second round, and they were going to give us that in the third.
Todd Heap.
Todd Heap. Well, we wanted Heap like nobody's business. And and he's going to take Gibson. And so then the Chargers called us, and they want us to move down like 3 or 4 picks, and they'll give us their third. So well, no, I got to have Gibson. Of course. Well, Gibson comes in, and he's not. And of course, Baltimore jumps on Heap. And again, it was the same thing. The Chargers wanted the quarterback. What's his name that went to New Orleans eventually?
Drew Brees.
Drew Brees. And they got Brees, and he plays well to the shoulder. But those are picks that we lost out on. And then, they're asking about the other tight end we drafted. He was great. He was really a very fine player. I really have nothing to say. We had it. We took him where we wanted him, and he played really well. But the Calvin. So one of them, they kind of haunt you a little bit. But I'll throw just some other stuff at you that'll just drive you crazy. The tuck game. We're playing the Jets in the last game of the season, and if we win that game, we get the bye. So we got 4th and 1. Now we got we had a short yardage group. John Ritchie leading Zach Crockett, and the line was good. So it's 4th and 1. We get the first down. Game's over, and so we do a play action, and Rolando Williams, the tight end, he's all alone. John Ritchie, he's all alone. Rich, he must have been so excited. He throws it, and it's like 4 feet over Rolando Williams' head. And so we punt, and the Jets kick the field goal, and they win the game. Then the Jets come out, and we play them in the wild card, beat them, and then we go to the New England. Now, if it was an early game, it never snowed, so that's a non-issue. We got the late game, and it snows like hell. So now it comes down to that last series, and it's like second and it's 2nd and 10. We give it to Charlie Garner, and Al always says if he broke to the outside, he's still running. He breaks to the inside, we get 9 yards. You got the 3rd and 1. So what happens? We get this. So it's Frank Middleton's the right guard, and it's the most basic play, the first play we learned in training camp. And instead of blocking Richard Seymour, he goes after the linebacker. And here's Seymour coming in, and poor John Ritchie gets stuffed, and we don't get the first down. So I remember asking the line, so it's Middleton, as soon as he's on the ground, he's going, oh, my gosh. So now it comes down to the tuck play. Now, here's something nobody really notices, but that play happened with like 1:55 to go in the game. If that play had happened with 2:01 to go in the game, it would not have been reviewed because Houston had used up all their reviews, and the league didn't automatically review turnovers or plays like that. But so for the want of like 7 seconds, it gets reviewed. Anyway, you know what? I got to move and plug in my laptop because my battery's dying. So I'll walk along here and give you a little tour of my so anyway, so I got to go down and plug it in. But those just drive you crazy. And that tuck thing, we just we got a special needs son, gets a little worked up on things, and so we'll see where it goes. Hold on a second here.
So he's made his appearance on other shows. We know it's okay.
God bless him.
So
I'm sorry, I got it. I should have. Okay, I'm good. It's not gonna die on me here.
So I have a question when it comes to Al Davis. Let's say when Al Davis has a coach, what are the factors like what makes Al Davis pull the trigger to fire somebody, and because there's some coaches that probably should have been fired. He kept them one extra year just to see, and then there's other coaches where he just like, where he just like middle of the season, kind of like a Shanahan, or there was another one, the one that Tom Cable took over, and I had the graphic too.
That was Kiffin.
Kiffin, yeah. So what are the factors? Like, say if a coach has a bad year, what are the factors for Al Davis to be like, let me give him an extra year, or when he's done and tired, what are the factors for him to fire somebody? Because you would think, like with Joe Bugle, a 4-12 year, he would have fired him early in that season. I know that was his only year, but you would think he would have fired him early in that season. Oh, I don't have it up here, but someone like a Lane Kiffin after I think that was like his second year in as a Raider head coach, he decided to cut him after 4 games. Like I guess a certain type of guys. When does he give them an extra chance to prove himself? And other guys, like what are the factors for him to be like, I'll keep this guy another year, but on another situation, I'm going to cut this guy. I can't have him coaching anymore.
Well, we kept Mike White one year too many. We had the 1 year, and it wasn't. I think it was 8-8 year, whatever. But that really wasn't very good. And then so after Mike, then again it was Joe, but I don't blame Joe so much as it was really a dysfunctional kind of team. That was with Chester. Let me give you the Chester story. It's kind of funny. I don't know if I probably told it. Was Chester was the classic coach killer, and but just as talented as all get out, and but I think he symbolized the lack of when he came in, he was living with Howie Long, and Howie was great, and he played hard for Howie, and Earl Leggett was a coach, and that's when he played well. When those guys were gone, he just he kind of, when he wanted to play well, he really was. I'd say he and Darrell Russell may have been two of the most talented defensive linemen in the history of football, but I also call them two of the most underachieving linemen. And they were Pro Bowlers, and I mean they were great players, but they just weren't as good as you wanted them to be. But we're playing the Chicago Bears, and we're up by like 2 points, and it's late in the game, and they're on they got 3rd and 2 at the goal line going in. And if they score, there's not going to be a lot of time left. And it was Neil Anderson. He runs into the line, and he breaks and there's nobody out there. And Chester takes off, and he horse collars him. He yanks him back, which was legal back then. And then what happens? I think it was Bob Thomas. He shanks the field goal. It's like an extra point. He shanks it, and we win the game. So I normally just happened to be outside the locker room, and Al was there, and Chester's coming in late. He was probably doing interviews, and he goes, "Chester, come here. And Chester walks over to him and says, "Chester, that play at the goal line was one of the great plays I've ever seen in all my years in football." I mean, you talk about a compliment. And Chester goes, "Okay," and he walks into the locker room. I think that sort of symbolized, where sort of that team was. That you had players obviously that really wanted to win, and we had too many players were just going through the motions. It was unfortunate. So that was and then Chester, he would go to a team and they'd have a worse record. He'd go to another team and the first team had a better record, and the team he went to had a worse record. You can look it up. It was like 4 straight teams like that. So now what happens is Bruce Kebrick, my co-author, he's at Tennessee, and a guy comes in, starts talking to him, and Bruce, not quite sure who he is, and Bruce says to him, "Well, who is that?" "Well, you should know who that is. That's Chester McLaughlin." And Chester was like 230. I mean, you didn't even recognize him. And what's he? He's a coach. He's a grad assistant coach or whatever. He says, "Wow." And so then Chester goes to Stanford, and I see him there as well, and and he couldn't have been nicer. He's doing great. I said, "Chester, do you see the irony of you being a coach, as difficult as you were to coach?" He says, "I was really difficult." And he admitted it. And David Shaw was the coach. And he said, Chester's, I asked how he's doing. He says, "Doing great. Now I've got I have this defensive line coach, before Chester got here, he's the assistant, and I can't get rid of this guy, because he's a good coach. I'm not going to do it. But if this guy left, I wouldn't hesitate to make Chester the D-line coach." And then I don't know how long, it was 6 months or whatever. Chester just didn't wake up one morning. So that was really kind of a sad ending. That what should have been a much more positive kind of a turn to his career. But I think that sort of symbolized what had been wrong with those teams. And I think the problem for coaches when they came in, if the players perceived that Al wasn't backing them, they just they didn't really fight for the head coach. and that's where they just kept kind of dropping off, left and right. And he made it. It was eminently clear without actually saying it, that that Cable wasn't the guy, and not even so much him saying it. He didn't do a very good job. Callahan again that first year was wonderful, and then Norv leaves, and he went to San Diego and did a good job. So, and I really think, I think when we hired Jon, I think Al thought he was a kid. That Al, you look like a kid. That Al could he's going to do what I tell him, and blah blah blah. And Jon really, really did a great job. Sign as free agents narrowly. Not sure that there really are. Free agent. I wasn't so much involved in that aspect of the free agency thing. I was really more involved in the again the draft stuff. I occasionally Al would ask me about a particular player, and I kept up with these guys left and right. I'd give your opinion, and and some occasionally he'd ask me to watch film and whoever it was, and give your opinion. And I mean, the one thing I told him what I wanted to, what I thought he needed to hear, as opposed to, like here's one that just, it was sad. Like at the end, Al again wasn't doing well. Now we had a ball player, if you remember, Bruce Davis was a left tackle on the Super Bowl team in '83, and big guy, wonderful player, really good guy. And his son came out of UCLA, was a linebacker and not nearly as big as Bruce. And he went to maybe Pittsburgh or something, but he was a free agent. We signed him, and he didn't look that good. Didn't look like that good a player, and I didn't particularly. And evidently the coaches didn't. And he asked me, what I thought of Bruce. I said, well, honestly, I just don't think he's what you're looking for. And he exploded at me, which you should have. And he hangs up, but it was totally out of character for him, and we didn't keep him. He kind of saw the light, kind of thing. But at the end, it was kind of sad. What can I say? But he was what made him great. Maybe kind of held him back a little bit. I mean, his fight to what he went through. I mean, it was really. Not a happy thing that he was going through, and it was very uncomfortable. But he couldn't concede, that he wasn't the guy. And we made some picks. We tried to, put him in the right direction. And sometimes he'd listen, other times he'd make the point. I can see it, and and often enough in the past he had been there, but like I said, he wouldn't. Like he wouldn't quit. When. Bill Walsh had leukemia, and which, and what I know from leukemia, but I guess the treatment is not very pleasant. And he kept going through it and finally said, that's it. I can't do it anymore. And he went off the medication and, passed away soon. And I mean, Al, called me up. He said, I can't believe Bill quit. I can't believe he quit. I said, well, maybe the treatment's worse than the diseases. BS. He hangs up on me. But I mean, he was that way, in the same way, he held himself to that standard, right to the end. And he was funny. He used to talk about, I'm trying to fight death. I'm trying to fight death. And I remember I just happened to see some letter on his desk and says, Mr. Davis, I see that you're trying to fight death, and if you're looking for eternal life, have you considered accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Which is very nice. Al was Jewish, So that was pretty funny that way. So, but like I said, the one thing, when you said he got rid of a coach, and he didn't bring in a lot of people. The Art Shell thing. He was one other guy he brought in and talked to. He was the head coach at Houston when Buddy Ryan punched him on the sideline, whoever that guy was. But he, as a rule, back when he used to bring in people and really, pump them for information. He did, but towards the end, it was just he didn't bring in a lot of people. He brought in Norv, who was a good coach, but it obviously didn't work. And he tried to manipulate these guys to run the offense the way he wanted to run it, as opposed to, when John had that offense and then Callahan carried it over, and then he wanted change. He wanted, spread it and stretch the defense, that kind of stuff. And, so we drafted Andrew Walter, who was more of a pocket downfield passer. And then Lane comes in, and he's, the West Coast guy. And, he doesn't fit, and then Andrew, he's getting Art. It was Art, and he's getting the crap knocked out of him. And that was unfortunate. So
Yeah,
the last decade was it's fine. I mean, every year I really went in there with optimism, and and things were not happening.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question. When Al Davis would have his coach in mind or fixated on a coach, maybe he hasn't made the decision to hire yet or whatever, outside the Rooney Rule, because when that came out, you had to, interview coaches. But when he was fixated on a coach, did he really interview a lot of other coaches after that? And if he did, what was his reason for interviewing anybody else that after he had his mindset? Was it to pump him for information on how they felt about the team, just information in general? Or once he was fixated, that was it? That's just all he's going to do, and he never brought anybody else in?
Well, again, that the year with Sean Payton, I know we interviewed the Ram guy that was very successful. But I wasn't involved in those. I wasn't even aware he had interviewed those guys. So he kind of kept it under wrap, which was fine with me. I was probably on the road at that point. But, after that, it was just, Art. Art was the guy. And, then it was just, the Sarkisian thing. Steve really impressed him. And again, like you said, Brock Bowers, God, he would somebody wrote that. Brock Bowers, I watched him. He was great. And, they should have taken a quarter. Hey, at that point, you take the best players out there. I mean, it is, that was smart. I mean, that guy will be there. He could be the best tight end ever. I mean, what can I tell you? It's, and you get him a better quarterback, and and then the stuff we did, with getting rid of the running back. And the guy had a hell of a year in Green Bay. The Giants get rid of Barkley. He has a hell of a year in Philly. I don't know. I talk to people and running backs. You can get a running back anytime. Yeah, but they're not going to be that good. Occasionally you hit a late round, guys in the 5th round, 6th round, whatever. But you got to, I don't know why people sort of devalue taking running backs early. Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. I don't know him from Adam, but watching him in the pros, he's been a heck of a player. But so I don't know why people, just kind of, like I said, devalued him. And, they got these guys, the running backs this year, one guy, whatever it is, a sign, what he was, showed some stuff, but, they had no running game. Green Bay had a running game. The Eagles had a running game. So, that one always, that one kind of went over my head as to how come, look, we took Marcus, everyone great. Bo Jackson, my God. We have Bo Jackson. Our line hadn't been that great. We get Bo Jackson. Boy, that line's blocking great. We lose Bo Jackson. Boy, that line just isn't blocking. And he made everybody better. He made Jay Schrader a winner. And I was talking to the quarterback coach. The key with Bo Jackson, on 3rd and 8, on normal situations, the linebackers are, would be, lined up deep, take away passing lanes. With Bo Jackson, they had to be close to the line of scrimmage because they're deep. We give it to Bo, boom, 9 yards. But they're close to the line. It opened up passing lanes, and we had a great Josh Jacobs. It would have kept him. I don't know why. People aren't giving. They're giving $50 million to the quarterback. Get a running back who'll make your quarterback better. But I mean, and I watched these games. They had 2 journeyman quarterback, and it showed. I mean, it's Aiden, showed some stuff, and then he gets hurt, and gosh, that game, the ball, he snap it off his chest and it falls down, and he was going to throw it out of bounds, and he was up second. That was just I didn't think they planned a lot ahead. Again, I'm just watching on TV, and I'm complaining as much as anybody. In case anyone wants to know what my shirt says, it's in Hebrew. It says Oberlin College, where I went to college. So anyway, sir, it's anyone who speaks Hebrew. That's what it said. Or anyone who doesn't speak Hebrew, it says Oberlin College, a little small school in Ohio, which I may have mentioned was the last school from the state of Ohio to defeat Ohio State in football. Great trivia question.
Yeah.
There you go.
Was it OU? Was it Cincinnati? It was Oberlin. 19. I think it was 1922. So there you
go. Al Davis, when picking a head coach, did he like to, like how John Gruden was this unknown coming out of Philadelphia as the offensive coordinator? Did he like trying to find out those unknown guys, or did he like going the veteran route, like after he did with Norv Turner, and I think that was it, just Norv Turner. I don't remember any. Yeah. All of his hires after Tom Flores were all just about a whole bunch of guys who never had head coaching experience until they came to the Raiders, except for Norv Turner.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, well, the other thing is the one thing they were, looking up here. Well, you had anyway. They're all. He always wanted offensive coaches. Shanahan was an offensive coach. Mike White was a quarterback coach. Yeah, it's Mike White. I don't know how well he's doing, but we bring him in, and he was our quarterback coach. And back then I didn't know too many, but he was the quarterback guru. He had quarterbacks at Illinois. He had quarterbacks at Cal, Bartkowski, Joe Roth. I think he had Jeff George with it, but he was a quarterback guru. And so we have the draft coming up. I was going to send him out to see some quarterbacks. And I go, okay, here's his. And he goes, okay, Bo. You call you Bo. Okay, Bo. I get what do I do? Oh, well, just see the travel agent, set her up at this hotel, and, here's the schedule, and, the workout is scheduled here. No, I mean, what do you want me to do at a workout? I said, well, haven't you ever worked out a quarterback? Oh, yeah, I've worked him out. But you tell me what you want me to do. So I said, oh, my gosh. So, he was kind of a disappointment in that way. And he didn't do a particularly job as the head coach. And then, after Mike, again, Joe Bugle, again, he was the wrong man. He was the right man at the wrong time. And then, like I said, John came in, and gosh, he was, and something, Al said that last game, the Millennium game, with John, we win that game. That was the greatest non-playoff win in my time with the Raiders.
Was that against the Chiefs?
I happened to see it was like somebody had it on Facebook the other day. Sort of the highlight, the whole thing. We're down 14-0. It's cold. It's we're out of the playoffs. We're 7-8, and we're down 14-0. And I think it's Kenny Shedd blocks a punt, and we score. And suddenly the team just got fired up. I mean, Rich Gannon was great, and Napoleon was great, and Tim Brown was great. And in fact, it was a funny thing. Wheatley, the greatest run ever. He won't go down.
Running on his knees.
God, that was, it was a funny thing. When Wheatley came out, it was the same year as Napoleon Kaufman. And Al liked big backs. But Napoleon coming out was just amazing. He was one step below Barry Sanders. I mean, Napoleon was great. And it was going to be very interesting. I was curious, who was Al going to take, Wheatley or Kaufman? And it turns out Wheatley went to the Giants right before we picked. And so we took Kaufman. And I remember in that preseason, we were playing Minnesota, and Ron Wolf was with Green Bay then. And I was talking to him. I said, Ron, what'd you think of our pick? He said, when you took Kaufman, I thought I about fell out of my chair. I said, you didn't like him? He says, I love the guy. I never thought Al Davis would take a small back. And then one time he was looking to considering taking an undersized linebacker. It was a kid at UCLA, and who was sort of undersized. And he says, "Well, what would people say if we took that guy?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what they say." And I told him the story about Kaufman, and I think people would say it was a good pick, but they would be surprised that you would take a 6-foot linebacker in the first round. And there was another one. I give you another one. It's a Ray Lewis is coming out. And, he wasn't a tall guy, but he was a great linebacker. Angie Koya saw him at Miami. He says, "Look, I think I need a coach to see him at the I think we need to see him at his workout." So he set it up. He's going to go out. I clear it with Mike White. And so I said, okay, here's Kaufman. Let me finish the Kaufman story. So Kaufman, was a great player, had a very nice career. He played like 6 years. And he came up to me, and I got to know him very well. And he says, "I'm thinking about retiring." I said, "Why so?" He says, "Well, I'm going to start my own church." I said, "I don't want to deter you from that, and you can always do that. But, you score a touchdown, and you go on your knees, and you point your finger up to God. You're in front of 60,000 people and 20 million people watching it, whatever, how many millions, you're sending a message." Well, that's a pretty good point. Let me think of it. But he retired, and he started his church. And we got Charlie Garner, who was an amazing replacement anyway. He was actually a better receiver than Napoleon.
Yeah.
But that was now ironic. I don't know if it's, but I was refereeing high school football games the last few years, and I was doing a Dublin High School was playing, and I was doing the Dublin game. And who's the head coach at Dublin? And it's in Dublin, California, up here. Napoleon was the head coach, and he goes, "I'm not letting that guy ref my game. I don't trust that." And he gave me a big hug. I mean, that was Napoleon. He's just a lovely man. And his kids played for him at a school called Bishop O'Dowd, and they won the state championship. And so he did a good job. But that's Nap. Truly a favorite guy. Thank you. Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff in there that. Draft room stuff. And I've told some of this stuff in the book, but I've told a lot of stories aren't in the book. We'll get you on the sideline with Gruden at the Tuck game, and we got Matuzak stories. And, I was telling people about Matuzak, and a lot of people, these young guys, they never heard of John Matuzak. And I said, "Did you ever see the movie The Goonies?" He says, "Yeah." He says he's the big monster. "Oh, that's John Matuzak." But they didn't know him as a player, so it's a generational thing.
And he actually wears a Raiders shirt in there to show, there's one scene where he has a Raiders shirt to show homage to the Raiders and everything, because he was actually playing for the Raiders at the time of that.
Yeah, and you've read those crazy Matuzak stories that I wrote about in the book, and he couldn't have been nicer to me. And there was a story I didn't tell, but he had a big incident after he retired with somebody. It was kind of a fight, and whatever, blah blah blah, and but nobody talked about it, and he lost it. But anyway, John died not long after. Someone asked his girlfriend about what happened in that incident. He says, "It was all my fault. I never blamed anybody. I apologize." So at heart, he was a good guy, but he was like a big kid that was just out of control, and unfortunately, he died at way too young. But a true, and he was a very good actor. I mean, you see him in MASH, and if you saw that episode in MASH, he was really good. I mean, he still looked great. And the North Dallas 40, he was wonderful. And I think it was a movie, Caveman, with Ringo Starr and his wife, Barbara Bach. I think her name was really Barbara Goldenbach, but she changed it to Barbara Bach. And that was the twos. He was a fun guy.
Who was the better actor out of the two crazy defensive ends the Raiders had, Matuzak or Alzado?
Matuzak was much better. Alzado was a much better player. And I'll tell you this, Alzado, I was one. You could kid around with guys. I would not kid around with Lyle. He was, one time he was like
Lyle.
Lyle was forget about. He was whatchamacallit. I think he had a sister who was pregnant or something. So he said, if she's pregnant, someone's going to call in. So I'm looking for Lyle. I said, Lyle, this happened. why didn't you tell me? I said, Lyle, I sprinted over here. I'm like, I make it look. He said, okay. So now, it's a 1 year. We don't have a PR director. And I'm at training camp, and I think John Herrera was, and he boots him. He says to me, you be the PR director. Yeah, I was an English major. I was a sports editor. I said, all right, I'll do that. So that was the year Lyle came back. After he retired, I never took steroids. I'm coming back. And so I'm at practice, and I come in, and I got a message in my box, and everybody's looking at me. It's like, it's like quiet. And I open it up, and it says, Maria Shriver wants you to call her. And there's the number. And they're looking at me. Maria, she just won't leave me alone. Maria had a show, some news show. And so, yeah, I'd like to talk. So I call up, I get her producer. And he says, well, we're interviewing Lyle tomorrow. We're coming up. I just want to confirm it's okay. And that he's going to be. So I said, something may have happened. Let me get back to you. So I go out there, and it turns out that he tore cartilage in his knee. So, I mean, that's not back then they could scope it. So I called the guy back up. I said, I found out he's going down to LA. He's going to be at Cedar Sinai and having surgery tomorrow morning. All right. Well, thanks a lot. And I watched the show, and they showed him being wheeled into the surgery. And then they interviewed him afterwards. But and then, very unfortunate. I mean, he was out of control at times, but he was great with kids, and he did a lot of charity and such. And I didn't have any issues with him, but boy, I didn't kid around with him either. And I said, he was, we got him for like a 7th round pick or something. It was, in fact, I think we might've even been a 6th, because Al said he'll be embarrassed if we only give a 7th. I think something like that happened. And he came in, and he really was like the last piece of the puzzle, with character and toughness and such. And, and it was great, with Howie and then Townsend. I mean, that 83 team, Billy Pickell, was great. No, that was a great draft. And, it was Pickell. We had Mosbar in the first round. And, if you remember, what happens is, I don't know if you guys remember, but we draft the guy, and then everything's great. We're excited. In fact, it was either him or Darryl Green, and then it comes out the next day that he had just had back surgery, and it's like, what? Oh my God, And back then, in fact, Ron thought he was getting fired. I mean, this was embarrassing. But he had the surgery, and he actually had a very nice career until he got poked in the eye, and that ended his career. But that was one pick. And then we had Billy Pickell in the 2nd round, who actually we knew he had back surgery, and he had a very good career. And then we had Tony Caldwell in the 3rd. I think Ron really liked him, but he just didn't make it. But Townsend in the 4th, Dokie Williams in the 5th. I mean, those were that was really a good draft. And so those were, looking back, that was one of our better drafts. And and like I said, and then Al Zato comes in, and we had a great thing. We had who was the safety we got from the Jets, a free safety, became a congressman, Burgess Owens.
Oh, okay. No,
we traded for Otis McKinney, and he was good. And then we had traded Casper, and for Kenny King, who had a good run, and drafted Marcus in the 2nd. And it was just it was when things were good, they were really good.
So I was saying, going with like off seasons, free agency, and the draft, when there's no head coach in place, and Al Davis is looking for a coach, and they come in. Do these new coaches, the new head coach comes in, does he have any input on that first year when he comes in, when it comes to free agents and his first draft as a Raider head coach, or is that still all head by Al Davis and Bruce Allen or Ron Wolf or whoever was in charge at the time as that general manager role, even though Al Davis was the final say. Does that new coach come in? Does he have a say-so when it comes to player personnel in that first year, free agents and draft?
No, pretty much Al was doing it again with the personnel department. Now he would call them up. What do you think? Excuse me, and get feedback, and that way get him involved. But ultimately Al is, unless the guy comes up with a reason why it's not going to work, and that didn't happen often. So it was mostly Al, and again, person. Roland Williams. That was another one. I don't think we wrote, but I think maybe we did put it. Bruce knew his agent very, very well. A guy named Harold Lewis, and Al knew that Bruce knew the agent. I want you to call him. We want to bring in Roland Williams, and he said, "Will that affect us drafting? What is it, Todd Heap?" Oh no, it won't help it. It won't help it. It won't affect it at all because we really, and we take Roland Williams, and then he doesn't. Oh, that'll just confuse things, and we end up with Derek Gibson.
Yeah, the safety.
He just wasn't that good. And, I think, the way he drafted Gene Upshaw way back when to block a guy named Buck Buchanan, which really worked well. He drafted Gibson with the idea that he was going to cover Tony Gonzalez. And, it just, that one didn't work. And we lose Todd Heap, who would have we would have, that would have been great. But, we ended up getting the other guy. Someone was asking about, was a very fine player. I got no inside story. We liked him. He took him, and he was a great player for us. Yeah.
Did that deter any other coaching candidates that Al Davis was looking at because they wanted more control than Al Davis would really give?
Well, again, you mentioned, Sean Payton, somebody told him, and, I was involved in the whole Steve Sarkisian thing. And the whole thing was, he brought in he came up 3 times. The third time he brought up Kiffin was going to be his coordinator. And then, we started denying it. But he called me up and he said, well, I don't put this in the book. But he says, get Sarkisian on the phone. I'm going to give him the job. Now, officially, we never offered him the job. So I called down there, and I knew the secretary because I from scouting down there. Hey, could you get Steve Sarkisian? And she comes back. We're right in it's signing day, and it was signing day. They're really busy. He'll get back to you. I said, all right. So I told Al what happened. It's signing day. And so a couple hours later, I call her back and he goes, Steve, he never got back to you. I'll get him. And she comes back. He's still kind of busy. I go, oh, something's going on. I called Al and I said, I think something's going on there. He says, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I know the secretary and she'd have got him on the phone if she could have. And I tried it twice. She didn't get it. So anyway, so later on I called his agent. Oh, yeah, no, he wants the job, blah, 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 blah. I called Al up and I said, well, the agent's, he's still interested. And Al says, he just called me. He doesn't want the job. So I think somebody got to him the way he talked about, maybe Pete Carroll said, maybe that's not because the reputation wasn't that good at that point. And then Kiffin came in and then, he said things, look, I'm doing my way. He doesn't like me. You can fire me. Which he did, and then, Cable, I was never a big fan of. And, I was pushing somebody else. And, again, he didn't hire the guy I wanted. And, then Cable, and then you came in and that's when he passed away. So it was.
Now, with Al's, we'll call it stubbornness, his, always wanting to do things his way. And going, how many times did he have to, we'll say, settle for his second, third, or a lower pick when it comes to head coaches because his initial guy he wanted just was not somebody who wanted the job?
Oh, you talking about coaches?
Yes.
You know what? I don't think I think towards the end, he interviewed a lot of people, again. And I think as he was getting, not that well, I don't think he had the energy. So, I mean, the Art Shell one was just, I think that was his final attempt to kind of have someone that's going to do exactly what he wanted him to do. And and he got what he wanted, with Art, and we brought back Tom Walsh and some other people, and it just, that was bad, and that's when they kind of, he says, "Oh, I'm going to," I think he was looking for another John Gruden, where we wanted Sarkisian, a young guy, and a lot of energy kind of thing, and then it just I was there at the front lines, and rollerball comes to mind. Hold on.
Well, this goes with this question right here: that did Al Davis enjoy movies? The Raiders feel like the most cinematic franchise in sports.
There you go. Hold on. So my dog wanted to come up on my lap here.
Mine's on my lap too. I got my little girl right here.
Yeah, it's
just annoying, scratching at the door.
Well, she thinks I got food, but I'm sorry. What about the movie you were saying?
No, that rollerball comment comes from, did Al Davis enjoy movies? The Raiders feel like the most cinematic franchise in sports. And then the next part of that is rollerball comes to mind as an Al Davis film.
He was not I never knew him to watch movies. He loved music, big band singers, from the 50s, 40s, 50s, and all that. He loved that stuff. But no, I don't really know of any movies. One time I actually read an article that his favorite book was called Sister Carrie. It was, and I'd read it in college, and I said, "Gee," because he was an English major, but I didn't know where But so I used to like to go to the college bookstores, look for new pens and such. And it was at Oregon State, and they had this really nice edition of Sister Carrie with diamonds, and it wasn't expensive. So I got it, and I brought it to him, and he says, "Oh yeah, Caroli's going to love this." So I guess it was his wife's favorite book. It's his obscure kind of thing. But no, he was not.
I remember reading something. Maybe it was in your book. There was something about his favorite joke was that dog food joke.
Oh, the dog food one. And when I got hired, every function he did a lot of functions, and with the team and this and that, he told this dog food story. It really wasn't even that funny. Everybody would laugh and such, and then I even told one time, which it was just the Scouts. He loved, Bruce Allen once said, I wish the Scouts were here all the time, because when Danny Connors played for the team, and Kent McLuhan played for the team, and Angie Koya played for him, and we ended up getting Calvin Branch, who's like one of the few guys that's still there, the only one from our department that's still there, but. So Al loved to come in and talk about these guys, and he tells stories about Angie Koya at the Citadel. The last play of the game, they kicked off to him, he returned it for a touchdown, and I mean, he loved these guys. And one time Angie and Kent were walking away. He says, "Those are two of the fastest guys you'd ever see." And Kent's son David used to always brag about how Kent beat Gale Sayers in the 100-yard dash. Kent was just, was a wonderful. I was talking about, Kent was like the first bump and run corner. Now people have disputed me on that, and when I came to the Raiders, Kent was a scout, and I used to watch, ball games growing up, and I said to him, I said, Kent, I come out here, and I hear Willie Brown was the first bump and run, and Al started it, and this and that. But when I was watching the Raiders, Kurt Gowdy, every time your name came up, would say, "There's Kent McLuhan, the first bump and run corner." But he says, "I was." He says, "Well, how'd you do that?" He says, "Well, we had like a 3rd and 5, and we used to line up 8 yards off, and they ran a quick out." And I said, and I'm getting yelled at. I said, "Let me try this," and it worked. And so why don't you bring it up? Look, I know I was the first. I don't need to prove it to anyone else. But so I keep saying it, and some people disputed me. But regardless, that was Kent, and he's still around. He lives back in Loveland, Colorado, and but he was great.
out of the going back to coaches like Shanahan and I guess the miss on Belichick, and there was another name you said that I guess and Sean Payton. Were there any coaches that he wanted and he like had a feeling that were going to be successful that wasn't successful with the Raiders, or he didn't get a chance to get, that ended up being successful somewhere else as a head coach? Were there any Were there any coaches where he regretted it not working with the Raiders, or regretted that he wasn't able to obtain for his team that had success somewhere else?
I don't have a lot. Obviously, he wanted Shanahan. He explained to me, I wanted someone with that West Coast offense because we hadn't changed the offense since he was the coach. And, in fact, Tom Flores always said, I always wanted to change the playbook because it was like they just kept building it and building it and building it. And a lot of things didn't make sense. You just had to memorize a lot of things. So he, and when Shanahan said, I brought a new playbook, Tom says, I would have loved to have done it, but he wouldn't do it. And then Shell was there for a long time. And again, I think he wanted to, as I understand it, I think we talked about it was Bill Walsh, who, I don't know if you remember, Bill Walsh coached for Al way back when as an assistant. And and Bruce was the one that told me he was walking with Bill Walsh after Mike White's second year. You gave me that coach, Mike White. So that didn't work out too well. And but I don't know who else. But again, like I said, and then joking. Suddenly Gruden, we had stability. I mean, maybe that was one of the great things people talked about. John Madden was there for 10 years. Tom Flores was there for I think 9 years. I mean, that was important. You get the right coach, why change it? And again, that's why you should have kept Gruden. If it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. Which just, but again, you talk about Sean Payton and Mike Matt, the Ram head coach that was had the passing offense that was so good.
Mike Martz.
Mike Martz. I wasn't aware that they, again, I was, maybe it was in the spring, I'm at timing days, so I wasn't involved at that point with coaches. So, maybe one of those guys, and it didn't, but no, I don't know of anyone particularly. Again, Sarkisian, it was his job if he wanted it, and he turned it down, and he's done fine, done very well. I think Alabama, and God bless him, he had and I'm not telling anything that I didn't read about. He had a drinking issue, which he's obviously cleaned up. Did a great job at Texas, and doing well there. Kiffin, didn't fit with us, and he goes to Tennessee, and he goes to USC, and he goes to Alabama, and now he's at Ole Miss, and just misses getting into the playoffs. So, but after that, then I guess he didn't want to. When he gets rid of him, he'll stay in house and goes with Cable, who again I wasn't that impressed with, and he keeps him for another year. I mean, that one just. And again, I was pushing someone else pretty hard, and he was very nice about listening to me, but whatever, I won't get into it, but he wouldn't hire the guy, which is one day maybe I'll tell that story, but not at this point. And then, Hugh Jackson, I thought started off pretty well. And, after he left us, that whole Cleveland, he was like 1-32 or something. And then he just got fired in Grambling and such. So,
yeah. I thought,
look, I've been watching these coaches now, even Gruden doesn't work out for these guys. So I think they brought in an outsider as opposed to using the people that used prior, and they're going to back up, and probably Mark certainly shouldn't have any input because what does he know? I mean, he hired Gruden. I'm sure I'll give him credit for that one, but who knows?
There's a question right there from Jason Downs. What was Coach Davis' biggest complaint about free agency?
Money. There was a story. I forgot the guy's name. It was his last name. I think it was Daniels. He was a defensive end. It's sort of a funny story. And I really didn't get involved in free agency and involved in contracts. And but one time he had me call this guy, this agent up, and it was a defensive end. He was a first round pick of the Cowboys, and it was a decent player. So I called up the agent. We set up the thing for Al to talk to the guy and such, back and forth. And he's talking with him, and he said, "Call the player up." Yeah, well, I agree with him. Hugh Jackson and Campbell, you're absolutely right. But I called the guy up, and I said to him, I said, we're really looking to, we got this team you could really fit. Bing, 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 bing. He said, it's really kind of expensive out there. I said, this is one of the Bay Area is one of the great metropolitan areas in the world. And again, he brought up as expensive. And I said to him, look, a guy goes to New York and he goes to this steakhouse and he sees the steak and it's like $60. And the guy says, back in Iowa, I can get that steak for $25. And the waiter said to him, yeah, and you'd still be in Iowa. And the guy kind of laughed. So anyway, Al calls me up. Did you talk to the guy? And I said, I told him the whole story. And then I told him that story about the steak. He says, you said that. He thought it was the funniest thing ever. He thought that was great. And then we signed the guy. You can look it up. And he had a decent year. And the second year, his salary was going to jump up. He didn't want to pay it, so we let him go. But he got a pretty good bonus and such. But yes, no, he got very tight at the end with money, and I think his mind was a little bit, it was like, we had a free agency, we had the draft, so you'd sell it's $20,000-$30,000, 50, whatever was a lot, and he says, well, so he signed two free agents, one for $5,000, one for $2,500, one for $5,000, one for $3,000. That's nothing, and so. He calls up, all right, do we give me bonuses? I say, yeah, this guy got 5, this guy got 8. What? You can't give him that much money. I said, sure, were you kidding me? No, and he's screaming, I don't have the money. You don't have the money? I'm thinking, I said, really? And he was really upset. I said, well, we agreed with these guys. Did you sign the contract? Well, we agreed. We sent him the copy of the contract. Did we sign it? No, we didn't sign it. Get the money back. So I called one guy. It was a linebacker, and I said, "Well, I looked up. He had a shoulder, and it turns out our doctors didn't pass him on the physical, and we're going to pass on the contract." And I knew the guy says, "I know you're lying, but all right, I won't for you." And then the guy with the 3,000, I was going. He was a receiver. It could be a returner, and I still remember it was from Louisville for whatever reason. And I called him up. And I said, well, it turned out we signed too many receivers and we don't have a roster spot for them. And so, well, were you going to give us the 3,000? No, we're not going to do that. And, well, I'm going to sue. So he files a grievance for the 3,000. And I remember, one of our lawyers saying, I can't believe you made a big thing about 3,000. I said, he didn't make a big thing. We did. And I think they ended up settling for $1,500 or something. But so the next year, I said, look, we're not signing any free agents. We're going to sell opportunity. So, we got spots on our developmental squad. We need. So we didn't sign anybody, but we ended up, we brought guys in, and one guy actually started the Super Bowl as a DB with the Patriots. They signed him off our practice squad. And a few guys made the practice squad. So, all things considered, we did a pretty good job. But after the draft, Al goes, all right, how much did you spend? I said, what, are you kidding me? I spent nothing. Oh, all right. Anyway, so that was a little craziness at the end there.
Was that Gerard Cherry, the safety?
No. I don't believe it was Gerard.
I get mixed up.
He was a nickelback. He wasn't really a starter, but the reason he was out there was because they had like five receivers and such. But so I took a little pride from that one. But yeah. So again, the coaching thing was that 1 year I wasn't involved, but the other ones, he pretty much picked the guy and let's go.
Okay. Funny Lane Kiffin question. Did Al Davis not know his name was Lane and kept calling him Lance, or was that just because he just wanted to call him Lance?
You know, he could have intentionally done it to be a little irritating and such, and I wasn't going to correct him either. But he knew it was Lane. But then it became sort of a running joke. But
I had heard something that he called him Lance because everybody else, every other coach would call him Mr. Davis or Coach Davis, and Lane would call him Al. So he did the Lance thing as a little jab at him because
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it going back that far. Well, like, you know what? John Madden would call him Al, and Tom would call him Al, and I don't even remember what Shanahan would call him. But after that, you're right. It was and Coach Davis, because I think Al enjoyed that title of Coach Davis. The coaches would do it, that kind of thing. So
I guess if you won, you could call him Al, and if you didn't, you had to call him Coach.
Well, he'd call me up, John, this is Al. I go, yes, Mr. Davis. I started, I was, right, so it was always Mr. Davis, which was fine. But, like Kent McLuhan called him Al, he knew him for Christ 40 years, both as a player and as a scout. I'm getting a little lightheaded. Can we kind of wrap it up? I don't mean to cut it short.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
We've been talking for what?
For as long as we did. If you need to go.
It's only been 2 hours.
Yeah.
This is great.
Okay, I guess last question.
Please.
Last question for what the Raiders are going through today. They got the two coaches right now. Basically, it seems like Ben Johnson, the coordinator for the Lions, the offensive coordinator, and then you have a Pete Carroll, who long time, USC, started with the Jets, and then head coach with the Patriots, went to USC, and came back with Seattle, won a Super Bowl, lost the following Super Bowl. If this was, it's probably an obvious answer, but I guess with Pete Carroll being the having the already success and everything as a head coach, and then you have the unknown. I know Al Davis would probably pick Ben Johnson as the unknown, but in your opinion, I'm Al Davis calling you. Who would you pick as the head coach for the Raiders? Would you go with the new guy in Ben Johnson, or would you go with the veteran Pete Carroll? Has all this experience, championship in college and in the NFL. Who would you pick as the next Raiders head coach?
Well, you to an extent, do you take John Gruden from the start, who's never been a head coach? But by saying Pete Carroll, you're in a division where they're all veteran head coaches. Pete Carroll sort of fits into that scheme, if that's worth anything in a sense. Now, again, he's not the youngest guy either, but like I said, there's a bunch of veteran coaches like that. I mean, I don't know if Ben Johnson, Gruden was such a fire-up guy combined with really such a bright guy. So, is he going to, Kyle Shanahan, I enjoyed, watching, him come in and stepped in. So, it's hard to say, obviously, from the outside. I'm looking at, Ben Johnson. It looks like I have no idea. Passive guy, fire-up guy. You talk around. You call all these. Particularly you call the Miami people. You call the players he coached. You make as many calls as you can to get as much background. I got one last story, which is just a silly story, but we talked about Al would always come to me with just obscure things. Who won the election? I said, the one in Iran? He says, yeah. So one time he calls me up and says, what do you think of Dominique Wilkins? If you remember, he was a great basketball player. Well, we had season tickets to the Clippers, and they had a terrible stadium. It was a terrible team, but they had them like at center court, and they thought Al would use them. He never used them. And if I was in town, I'd call up a buddy, hey, let's go to the Clipper game. And I watched, and I said to him, I happened to see him play 2 weeks ago. Now, I wasn't scouting him, but, he stood out. He was, Dominique Wilkins. He could run the court. He really played well. But why? I wasn't asking him why. But he says, well, Donald Sterling, who blew it with the Clippers, but he called me up and he said they're thinking about trading for Dominique Wilkins. So I said, well, again, I saw him in one game, and I watched him play, and looks like he can still play. He says, well, like I said, they're looking to trade for him. And I said, well, I don't know what's a fair trade on their level, but if it's a good trade, if it's fair, I'd make the pick. But isn't his contract up this year? And why would you trade for him if he's just going to leave? Oh, no, they could sign him. They can sign him. I said, all right, tell them to make the trade. Like I feel I'm not so presumptuous that, they make the trade. He calls me, that was your trade. I told him my top scout says make the trade, which again, it's silly. But so when he started playing, I watched him and he played really well. And then the season's over. He left and signed with the Celtics. So I was right on both counts. But that was, so there you go.
Well, we thank you for coming on to the show. I know Asylum has called you or messaged you saying, hey, man, we should get Jon Kingdon because I know he can give us some insight on how it goes inside Al Davis's office during this time. So we're glad that you accepted the invitation, and we're glad that you came on to the show and give us more of those behind the scenes Al Davis stories, which I feel like a lot of new Raider fans don't really know because they see Mark Davis and whatever, and it's nice to give those Al Davis stories for people to know that that's the man who built the legacy that all of us in Raider Nation, go back in time and watch these great teams. It's all because of Al Davis and that mentality and attitude that he had that carried on to the players, that carried on to the opposing players who felt that attitude and all that. So we want to thank you for coming on and giving us all
one more thing real quick. Because somebody wrote in there, he kept everyone on their toes. And there was a guy named Mike Ornstein who worked for the Raiders. He was a genuine character. And you can look this guy up. And he was with the Raiders, and they fired him. He came back, and they fired him years later. But a genuine character who died. But anyway, one day, Al's out of state somewhere. He's traveling wherever. And Al wore a lot of cologne. So Ornstein went to Al's office, got the cologne, sprayed it all over, and he's walking around the building. Everyone's going, where's Al? Where's Al? It was funny. The guy said it reminded him, kept everyone on their toes, and you could really, it was a nice cologne, but you could see it coming 50 yards away, which was funny. I thank the people that are making comments. I want to thank them. There's some really nice things, and I hope I helped enlighten them a little bit on such. And, I certainly, if they got questions, I might as well, if they want to ask me particular questions, my email, jkingdon1213@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to answer them. Or they can wait till I'm back here on the next show. I really enjoy talking with you guys. It's been great.
We appreciate it.
Have you on again. I will definitely hit you up. We love having you on. We appreciate every time you come on, and we love all the damn stories.
Super. Thanks so much.
Yes. And if you want to get the book, we put the link inside the comments. The book is right here. Once again, Al Davis Behind the Raiders Shield, Untold Stories from Longtime Davis Confidants. It's on Amazon. We have our own copies. Asylum got his signed, though, so I'm jealous. But I
got mine straight from Jon Kingdon himself.
Well, are you in Hayward there? Are you in Hayward, or is that your phone number just in Hayward?
My phone number is just in Hayward. I used to be in Hayward, and then I moved to Kansas about, 6-7 years ago now. And I've had the phone number for 20 years, so I'm not changing it.
We're on Facebook together, right? Did you see the picture I put on with me and John Vella and Art Toms?
I did not see that yet. No, I have not.
Well, I put it on a while ago. Kind of look at it under my account. Those 3 great ones from the 70s. You're like that. But anyway, it was wonderful talking, and I love the history, and I love sharing it with you guys. It's always great.
All right.
And we appreciate you coming on. We thank you for your time.
And we'll get you out with this right here. All right, everybody. Thank you, Jon Kingdon, longtime Raider exec, 33 years with the organization. That was Jon Kingdon right there.
When you have great coaches Then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
I want to. So I know there was a safety, and I do remember these random Raider. I don't want to say facts, but back in the day when they used to have newspapers that would come to your door, and I would try to read every article that they write about the Raiders, and I might have been wrong.
Talking about newspapers.
I don't care. I don't care. Can I miss newspapers? All right. I would try to steal the neighbor. No, I wouldn't do that. But I remember there was a safety, and I might have been wrong. It was Gerard Cherry. I don't think it was, but it was around that same time that I think either the Raiders were going to sign him and they didn't, but he was like high on the radar, or they were going to sign him and he didn't want to sign with the Raiders or something. And I think he had gone to school. He'd rather have gone to school and finished his degree, and then he ended up going to the Patriots because they had so many injuries and ended up winning a Super Bowl with the Patriots. But I might have been wrong, but I do remember it was somebody around. This was like 2004, I think, or 2004. I can't remember, but I try to remember all these random names. I remember reading it in the newspaper. So Jason Downs had corrected me, but I was all like, I remember a story, but there was a safety or somebody, a DB that the Raiders were trying to get, and they couldn't get him. Or they couldn't sign him onto the active roster. Ended up going to the Patriots and having a decent career with them. Got a championship or two or whatever. But we want to thank Jon Kingdon for coming on. That was somebody that Asylum basically has on speed dial. So got his Raider Rolodex going.
One other time, everyone who loved this show, we do have. I believe it's 3 or 4 other shows that he has been on so far with us. Again,
thank you.
Pushing his book. And personally, I have both the hard copy and I have the audio book. My suggestion is buy the hard copy for yourself and get the audio book because the narrator does a great job. You can listen to it. I mean, I listen to the audiobook at a minimum 1 or 2 times a year. Most of the time, it's more than that. I have it in my yearly rotation. It's one of those things. You hear the stories. And, my favorite part is the opening part of the book where they said, when we decided to do this book, it had to be everything. It had to be warts and all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it goes into detail. And the fact that on this show, we get even beyond what the book says. What's in the book is even more. We appreciate Jon Kingdon for coming on every time. Again, I was blessed to be able to get my book directly from him. So that's the only reason why I have an autographed copy. It came directly from him, and it is definitely going to stay in a collection. I mean, it really meant a lot.
Yeah, I bought this book in 2018, I believe. And it was at one of the Black Hole home opener parties. I think it was the one we ended up on TV on Channel 5 News. When we were out, I think that was that same one. I want to say it was that same one.
With Mama Lynch.
Because they had the stand out there, the little table. It was selling the books, and I had read the book about 5 years ago, because these years are going by fast. It was like 5 years ago, and I remember that it starts off talking about when Jon Kingdon, I think it was Jon, because there's 2 authors on there, but Jon Kingdon was with Matuzak, and he ended up getting stuck at this party because he was trying to interview him, or he was trying to he was hanging out with Matuzak.
He was told to go with Matuzak to a Raider. Matuzak was supposed to go do an event that had him involved with it. He was trying to follow Matuzak in his little Toyota, and Matuzak had like a Cadillac.
Yeah, told him to jump in.
Yeah, so they pulled off because Kingdon couldn't keep up, Matuzak decides to get a 12-pack of Tall Boys or whatever it was, hands one to Jon Kingdon, and he didn't even want it, but he figured it was one less. Matuzak's drinking it on the way to this event. Then at the event, everybody's, hey, this is Tuz, let me buy you a drink. And it's all right, give me a Triple Crown Sec or a Triple Crown Royal. And he's doing all these shots, drinking a lot. I mean, it's like shot after shot. Then they drive back, and Matuzak's Jon Kingdon's trying to test him. I don't know where my car's at. Don't worry, I know where it's at. Yada, yada, yada. They get back to the parking lot, which happened to have a bar in it. And then they end up back in the bar instead of going straight to the cars. And he's doing even more shots. Ends up disappearing with the girl in the back. And then, Jon Kingdon goes to look for him. Can't find him, leaves. And for the rest of that night, he's watching the news. And in that morning, hoping he doesn't find him on the news. And he ends up, in an accident and everything. And what does he see? John Matuzak at practice like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, he put stories in like that. There was I think my favorite one was the comb story, Al Davis's comb.
Yeah. Here's your breast. Do you need a breast? Do I need it? Yeah. And Al Davis fucked it up anyway, or messed with them, and he went. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great stories in it, and if you're going through the audiobook, the narrator does an awesome job with it. If you like to read, I know people who like to read it physically. It is a great fucking book. It gives you insight to a lot of things that was going on at the times that they were there, and everything going on. I mean, it's a side of Al Davis that you never got to see.
Yeah. There are a couple of Al Davis books out there that were written. They're slick. There's another one called Just Win, Baby. But I think this one right here, the one that Kingdon wrote, this is probably, I would start off with this one.
We got to give them both. I wish I could find Bruce to be able to get his autograph to add to it, because, both of them, like I said, it is warts and all there. I mean, it does not make Al Davis look bad. There's nothing like that, but you do get to see the good of Al Davis, what he's done for the Raiders, the league, everything else in there. And you also see the side of Al Davis that, all of us want to call him senile when he was older and everything, but you see why he was the way he was towards the end.
Yeah.
There's an explanation for it all. It's not just that he was, crazy and all that shit. You read this book, listen to the book, and you'll have a better understanding of who Al Davis was as a person.
Yeah. By somebody who was there alongside with him during that whole time for the 33 years from 1970 from 1978 up until 2012, when after Al Davis had passed away. So he was there for 2 Super Bowl wins, the loss against the Buccaneers, up until the year he had passed. So he gives a lot of background, a lot of behind the scenes of everything that when it comes to Al Davis. And it's not a negative, like Asylum said, it's not a negative view like some books have, and it's not like it's like the
was just trying to make him look good and everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just
it's a true behind the scenes look at Al Davis and the Raiders during those years.
Yeah, so go check that out. Read it. I'm telling you, once you start reading it, you're not gonna be able to put it down. I read this whole book because I had time. I had time to. A lot of us don't have time with work and family and everything. But I had time to read it. I was on injury from my job at the time, so I was able to sit down and read. And I went through that whole book and uninterrupted, and probably in about a couple of days, 3, 4, 5 days. And then I'm all like, I need another book that can follow that. And I have other rated books I got to read, but I was trying to read another Al Davis book, but it didn't compare to that one. So I have a whole library. I mean, I can't get it right now. It's behind me, but maybe on the next show I'll show a picture of my whole Raider library. I got I got 3 Al Davis books. Got a John Madden book. I got Cruising with the Twos. I got They Call Me Assassin. But it has the 2 books. I think from Jack Tatum. There's another second part that he wrote, and I have Ken Stabler's The Snake book, his novel. So I have Tim Brown's book. I'm missing a few others, but I have a whole library. I have Bo Jackson's book, and then I have the one written about Bo Jackson, like came out a couple years ago, kind of referring to him as like not a mythological, but like a folk hero, you know, how he was perceived by other people, like he was like this you know, like those folk heroes, you know, like those mythological heroes type of thing. Like they compared him to a superhero and all that. So I started that book. So, but
the story of Hercules or Achilles, or you know, that whole thing, and you know, I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, this is a side, you know, this is Al Davis. A lot of people have an opinion of Al Davis, and I guarantee if you read or listen to this book, your opinion of Al Davis is going to change. Not in a bad way, but it's going to change, and you're going to see, you know, Al Davis in a different light. You'll see Al Davis, you'll see the great, you'll see the, as we put, the stubbornness, everything going on, you know, the way things went. But you see that, you know, everything Al Davis went through to make the Raiders what they were in, you know, in the heyday. And then at the same time, you're going to see why they went that direction, and we're in the situation we're in now because of everything. And you'll just, you'll appreciate, after reading this book, you'll appreciate Al Davis and everything he's done for the Raiders and the NFL.
Yes. So go to Amazon, go get that book. It's a great read. Add it to your collection. I feel like we did like a little little book club episode today, you know. But we wanted to, you know, kind of look inside on how Al Davis did it, because none of us can understand what Mark Davis is doing. And I'm gonna agree with what he said towards the end, with Jon Kingdon said towards the end, Mark doesn't really know football, so I don't know why he's involved, just, you know, because I kind of can see that he makes all these decisions, and it's like, if you don't know football, which Mark has said, I don't know football, then just let the football people make the football decisions. Well, you don't have to be your dad.
That's what he's doing now, with letting Brady have as much input as he has.
Yeah, so Brady is the one.
I said the word apparently, okay? I'm not saying it's just, apparently it seems to be going. You know, even Richard Seymour has a say. So it's not just Tom Brady. He just has more influence than everybody else.
Yeah, because Tom Brady is Tom Brady. So I had said it. Well, actually, I had said it first on Jeff's show. If Jeff's still watching, but you heard it here first. The new slogan of the Raiders, instead of "Just Win Baby," it's "Just Win Brady." So not just I just hope that things work out, because can you see what happens if it doesn't work out? And you asked Brady. Oh my God, you know. Told you, just like Michael Jordan when he tried to take over the Bobcats. Okay. All right. Anyway, on Washington, whatever. The Wizards and all those. Yeah, it didn't work out. Yeah. But we just want to see some running football, and bringing Jon Kingdon to talk about those times, the glory years and everything, and with Al Davis and you know, all that. It's always a treat.
Those stories. I mean, that's that's the thing, is when you have Jon Kingdon on, I mean, he loves coming on this show. He always says it, you know, and we'll always, anytime he wants to be on, he'll always be on. But these are stories that you're not going to hear from anybody else. This is literally somebody who's been there, you know, from the get-go. These are, you know, first-hand stories. It's not second-hand, third-hand. It's not speculation. These are literally first-hand stories. These are stories that you may never be able to hear again in the future, because at a certain point, it's just going to be these stories are just going to live on through us and YouTube.
Not YouTube. Us on YouTube.
We're on YouTube. Well, and Facebook, but you know.
Us on YouTube, yeah.
You know.
All right.
Because
well,
Roger likes to fuck with us.
We'll still be around. We still break barriers like our Davis did. We still bend the rules.
Can't stop us. He's tried, and we still get through. So you know what? Yes, keep it up, Roger. We like a good fight.
Yes.
That's why it's called the cage match.
Yes. So it's never gonna happen. Okay, it's never gonna happen, Goodell. All right, Asylum. We hit our two. Well, we actually were 2:14. So we want to, like I said,
because Jon Kingdon almost went on for 2 hours. So
I know.
I'll take Jon Kingdon for 2 hours all day long.
Yes. So like I said, want to thank Jon Kingdon for coming on and talking about the Raiders that we either grown to love. And then, or like for me, who learned to love, like not learned to love, but I learned and I studied the history, and then I continued it with what I watched. My glory years are those John Gruden years, the first time around. Those are my glory years, 2000, 2001, 2002, which was actually Callahan. But, and then now, you know, my 20 years of what's going to happen next and who's going to make it, who's going to bring us back to relevance again. But, like I said, we'll bring it back on again because it's just, you know, hearing all these stories, you know, you gotta, like we always say, know your history. So with that said, Asylum, any last words or anything?
No, thank you for everybody who watched the show, everybody in the chats. Thank you, Jon Kingdon, again. I mean, you know, anytime I could get with him, I'm gonna take, because that's a source of knowledge that won't be with us forever.
Yes. And we will come back next week. We got to confirm if she's going to be on. It will be her week.
No, it should. I'll double check, but it should be a Peggy week. So, you know, 3 straight weeks of either hard-hitting facts or knowledge you'll never hear again.
Yes.
Or not again, but you never hear anywhere else. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm all like, they can still replay it, you know, and watch it again. Give us our views. Nah. So yeah,
like, share, subscribe to the channel.
Yes.
So we're bringing you this, and you'll be able to watch this, you know, for as long as it's up.
Yes.
We don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, anywhere, anytime. We don't plan on going anywhere. All right. Well, yeah, next week should be a Peggy week. Just, you know, like Asylum said, hit that bell, like, share, and subscribe, so you can see when we post the next thumbnail for that show. But we will be on next Wednesday, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock your time. Asylum Central. So we want to thank everybody, and thank you for the questions. Thank you for the questions in the comments. Great questions, and you can tell that Jon Kingdon loved it because he would cut us off and answer those questions. So we appreciate everyone in the chats adding to the conversation that is Jon Kingdon. All right, we end every show like we always do with a message from Raider Milt, a.k.a. Coach Wallace, my old coach from back in the day. We keep his memory alive because he was a diehard Raider fan. And another phrase he had said is, "I throw grenades all over the stadium to the opposing players." So we want to thank everybody for watching and take care. And we'll see you on Wednesday. And we'll see, unless there's a big announcement. We'll see you on Wednesday. Take care. Have a good night, and be safe out there, especially in the LA area. Be safe out there. Take care. Good night.
All you other NFL teams, your tailgates are weak. Your teams are weak. We might be down right now, but it doesn't take away the history. And all you Raiders out there need to know your fucking history of who the fuck you playing for and where the fuck you're playing. Damn it. Oh, and by the way, I won my last cage fight again. I'm still undefeated. And you NFL motherfuckers out there that you think you want some, come on and get some anytime.